G'day, legends. We're back in the building after the international break. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me is Liam. Johnny will be on hopefully later. Technical difficulties, I think apparently he has a gremlin on the computer, but that's what he says. But how are you, Liam?
Well, he's got a gremlin in his computer. I think I've got a gremlin in my immune system. I am feeling like crap right now. But hey, let's talk Celtic and hopefully that some sort of placebo effect will kick in.
Look at it this way, Liam. You're not feeling well. There's always one thing that can make you feel a lot worse.
Yeah.
At least you're not a Sevco fan.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, all right. I'm not feeling my best, but we're not talking necrosis quite yet. But I haven't gone full zombie yet.
Yep. Got some comments here. Michael Ross, yes, it's Superman. I knew it was a Tim.
Oh,
Andrew Blair, Liam in his pajamas. Hutton, better late than never. Yeah, sorry, mate. We've just with the time changes, things have chopped and changed around here. So we're basically working in 3 time zones at the moment to get this show out. So it's 9 o'clock here for me. It's 7 p.m. for Liam in Japan, and it's 8 p.m. for Johnny in Brisbane when he gets on. So the things we do to talk Celtic because we love it. So yeah, we'll get on with the show. So we've got I'm going to start off with the mental health fundraiser that we've been doing for the month of October. So 1 foot forward, the Black Dog Institute. We set a goal of $500 we wanted to raise for the podcast over the course of October, and we're almost up at $2,500. So doing a lot better than I thought we would, and it's great to be getting out there, going for a walk. And tell you what, my t-shirts are starting to look a little loose on me. So the wife mentioned it before, so I'm getting the benefit while raising money for a good cause. So it's happy days there. How are you doing with it all, Liam, other than being crook at the moment? You've been doing pretty well from what I've seen.
I'm glad I got my miles in early because I'd actually had in the back of my mind we're coming into Japanese flu season, so I wanted to get it done. I managed to get the 300 completed last week. I'll send you a bill for the trainers because my my Nike Airs actually exploded at the end of the 300. The bubbles actually burst. So I had to buy new shoes the other day, but apart from that, it's been wonderful. And listen, all joking aside, massive thanks to everybody that's donated. I'm blown away at how much we've managed to raise. Like you say, we set 500 as a target, and we're being optimistic. And we've gone well past that, and there's still more than a week to go. So let's push on and see what we can do. I've done my 300, but I've pledged to try and for every dollar that comes into my donation, I'm going to try and do a kilometre. So I've done 360 so far, and there's 460 in the pot. So hopefully I can get another 100k in before the end of the month.
I'd set myself 100Ks, Liam, and yeah, I had to change it because I already smashed through. I'm like about 130Ks, and that's before even putting in anything what I've done on the weekend. So pushing for 200 myself, which is good. It's just good to bring the competitive juices out and for a good cause. So yeah,
it's amazing how quickly it all stacks up. You just you just go to work, you come home again, you're like, oh shit, I've done 10 kilometers. It really is like it's that quick once you get into a habit of just doing it every day. I mean, I don't know if I could do 300 kilometers every fortnight, but I tell you, it's definitely an addictive thing in a healthy way. Once you get into it, it really does feel good.
Well, they say it takes 21 days to form a habit, Liam. So we're officially got the habit going because it's day 23 of the month. So there we go. Last thing I want to say, Liam, you said you blew out your Nike Airs. What'd you expect? Sweatshop shoes. Enough said.
Aye, well,
I mean, anyway, unless you wear clogs, mate.
Just to be serious for a minute, there is all this thing. We want fair trade. We want to clamp down on all that. So if we are serious about ending sweatshops, now is the time to stock up on cheap sportswear.
Especially Castore branded, right?
Yes.
Anyway, we'll crack on to the Celtic talk now. We've had a bit of it's been a couple of weeks without catching up, Liam. Well, I don't know, I'm going a little stir crazy. Anyway, we get into it. Celtic 4, Hearts 1. I was going to name the podcast Ichi-Ni-san for the 3 Japanese goal scorers, but then I'm like, it doesn't make sense because O'Reilly scored the first one, which is Ichi. So basically, it
Mm.
would be Ni-san Shi or something like that for those next 3. And I'm like, but then O'Reilly gets left out. So, like, nah, boy band podcast episode name, Matt O'Reilly and the J-Boys. There it is.
Yeah.
We had
Also,
to.
you don't want to use she in a Japanese name at all because it's the same pronunciation as death, so people
Yeah,
tend to shy away from that.
yep. I knew that
Uh,
one as well. So, but
aye.
the funny thing is, if we had a Gone Willie as the podcast name for tonight, it would have been probably would have got, kicked off YouTube and everything else. So
It was
what
an
we
accurate title, to be fair.
we passed 5 minutes, so we can say it now. We don't have the fear of YouTube, dropping us or kicking it off here. So Willie said, take that, Naismith, you dirty big hun. That was pretty much the name that he said for the episode, and you can't go wrong with that. So let us know your thoughts on the game against Hearts. Okay, so fill up the comments. Let us know your thoughts on the starting lineup, the goals scored, any players in focus you want to talk about. Me and Liam will chat about it all as well. But I'm going to bring up a couple of comments here. So Pegleg was Hearts got horsed.
Yep.
Michael Ross, we blew the watery farts away. Whew, bit of gastro farts, gotta love it.
Mm.
And yeah, so we'll get into the starting lineup here, Liam. So I had it on my phone and I just accidentally shut it. So we started off. It was going to be, there's pretty much only one question every week now, isn't it? It's who's
Mhm.
going to start up front alongside Kyogo and Maeda. The rest
Yeah.
of the team picks itself, which is a good thing to have. Like, even though we're starting to come back to some strength, we're getting players back. You got Hart. Taylor Scales is first choice for me at left centre back now. Carter
Mhm.
Vickers at right centre back. They're still building a nice partnership. Alistair Johnson out right. The midfield three, Hatade, O'Reilly, and McGregor. You can't really argue that. And then up front, yeah, it's Kyogo, Maeda, and who else? Are you going to play Yang? Are you going to play Palmer? Are you going to play Abada once he's back? Is Tilio going to get a game when he's back and fit? Is Mikey Johnson? I'm doing that just because he scored an international goal. Is he
Mm.
going to get a game? I hope not, but I want to see the comments light up. People tell me, wind your neck in. So the main option is who's going to be the other winger. Is it going
Yeah.
to be Jamesy Forrest? So we've got plenty of options there.
Mm.
But yeah, what was your thoughts when you saw the starting lineup, Liam?
Yeah, I was excited because I liked what I'd seen of Palma so far. So getting another chance to have a good look at him. I was, I was also pleased that Iwata still made the bench. There's been question marks about whether or not he fits in, and I think he answered those when he came on. So that was good to see. No, I think it was as close to a full strength team as you can have at the moment. Um, I think when Navrosky and Abada are both fully fit, in a couple of months or whatever, there's going to be some real difficult choices to be made, but in a good way, for the manager.
Yeah, it's going to be that way as well. Like, there's plenty of options, but there's talk going around. Apparently, Rogers doesn't rate Lagerbalke. He thinks he's too slow. So I
Mm,
think the big signing at the back, realistically, was Starfelt going in. We signed Naroski as his replacement. Let's be honest.
yeah.
So it's going to come down to who are your top 3 centre backs at the moment. At the moment, it's Carter Vickers and Scales. You've got Phillips on loan, but we're barely seeing him play. Once Naroski's back fit, Lagerbalke's fit, I don't think we're going to keep Phillips. It's going to cost too much to keep him.
Yeah.
And then by the time the window comes and he can move back, what happens? In comes Welsh as your 5th option at your centre back. So I don't really think we're going to need Phillips. So realistically, it's going to be a combination of those main 3. Like, Scales hasn't done anything wrong. Like, for me, he was probably one of our better players yesterday.
Hmm.
I'm just loving the composure of, and it's something that Sean used to say on the pod as well, where having a naturally left-sided centre back, it just looks a lot smoother. Like, when Carter Vickers passes it to him, he's getting closed down, and you don't need a quick 1-2 to get it to the right, to get it from his left foot to his right foot to make the pass. It's just
Hmm.
bang, one touch football. There was a time in the game where the ball came from left back into him. and he's hit it across to Johnson. It's then come back over to Carter Vickers, to Hart, and then it's pushed to him again in the middle of the centre back, and then he's pushed it forward, ran it forward a bit, and I'm just like, that's just such a simple football. So I don't know. For me, Scales is undroppable at the moment, and Carter Vickers is the equivalent of Virgil with when he had Denier next to him. For me, it's like Virgil made Denier look better, and
Yeah.
well, and you look at Carter Vickers playing against Starfelt, he looked good. Carter
Mm.
Vickers alongside Scales, he's looking good. Carter Vickers alongside Lagerbelka, he's looked good. So I think that's the rock in our defense there. And yeah, for me, it's still Scales, but Naroski, if he came in, he'd do the job as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, that's the advantage that Scales has, is that, whether or not you think Starfelt is a better defender all round, and I think he was, um, the fact is that just simply because of he's left-footed, Scales can do in one touch what Starfelt needed two touches to do. And in any sort of high tempo game, especially, later on in Europe, whatever, that's going to be really, really important to be able to just make that one touch pass or one touch tackle, as opposed to having to shift your feet and, maybe take a touch, which if you're not naturally left sided, you would have to in that position. So, yeah, definitely. Um, which do we can I don't know if I can remember which foot does Narovski kick with? Is he left or right footed?
I think he's naturally right-footed, but he always has played on the left side,
Right. Okay. Right.
if
Well,
that makes
that's.
sense. So
Mm, mm,
that reminds me of what's your guy's name down at Liverpool that plays alongside Virgil? Gomez when he played centre
aye.
back.
Yeah.
He was a natural right-footed guy who always, even when he was at Charlton and other clubs, he played as a left-sided, played left centre
Mm,
back always. So yeah, it shouldn't make much difference there. Something I'm going to bring up here. Andrew Galee's got this comment here. CCV makes a difference.
yeah.
And then Michael Ross, we don't need Phillips. Andrew Galea, no point playing Phillips. And the reason I said that about Phillips early on as well is Scales is our player
Mm,
at the end of the day. We own his contract. Like, he's our guy. Phillips is Liverpool's player at the end of the day. Why should we put time into developing or playing Phillips, getting him in games when Scales is doing the job for us and he's our own player? And we're going to get the benefits long term if we do that. That's basically cutting your nose off to spite your face. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm actually enjoying watching Scales play.
Yeah. I mean, it's no slight on Phillips. The guy is a quality defender from what I've seen of him at Liverpool before he came to us. But yeah, you're right. As long as Scales keeps playing the way that he's playing, and then you've got Navrosky coming back, Phillips is surplus to requirements. Not his fault. It's just the way it is. And yeah, Liverpool would want too much money for him to get him permanently, and he's not as drastic a shift up in quality as you would expect for what's going to be like a £8 to £10 million signing. So no, it just. I mean, let's face it. If we hadn't had as many injuries as we did, we would never have been interested in taking him in the first place, because he's not really. It's not a player we could realistically sign long term. It's not a player that really, I think, fits with what we want to do. He's a decent defender, but nah, not for me.
Well, Pegleg's saying it's a long season, guys. We might need Phillips yet. I
Mm,
understand what you're saying there, Pegleg. I get it. If he didn't get injured when he made his debut, would Scales have got his opportunity and would be having this conversation? Probably not. So I understand what you're saying. Phillips was always going to be a stopgap. As Jamie Young's just said in the comments, we knew Phillips was going to be a stopgap.
mm,
Exactly. The thing is, as Liam's saying, if we were to buy him, Liverpool be wanting, about 8 to 10 million for him. I'm looking at this now going, okay, if Scales has been out on loan and was up at Aberdeen and he was doing well at Aberdeen, and then he's come in here and he's had a chance to establish himself and actually play regular football, and he's showing us that that players within Scotland can do the job for Celtic, which we haven't seen that since Ronnie Dahlia, I got bloody tongue tied there. When Ronnie was at the club and he got those guys from Dundee, Armstrong, Mackay Stevens, Shifty wasn't so good, but he signed those guys. Realistically, we haven't really been looking to buy players from other Scottish teams, and there's got to be some talent there because I'm looking at it and going, all right, there's a big left-sided centre back playing for Hearts last night. Yeah, we put four past him, but it wasn't him making the mistakes. In Kai Rouse, the Aussie centre back, we could do
Mm,
a lot worse than looking at him if we needed to buy a centre back, and he'd be a hell of a lot cheaper than 8 million than Phillips. You could probably pick him up for 4 to 5 quite comfortably, maybe even less.
mm.
So why would we spend 8 million on that when you can go and get a full Australian international, younger player, doesn't have the injury history there, and you can bring him in and he knows the league because he's been playing in it for a few years. Like that sort of signing to me makes more sense than spending 8 million on Phillips, 8 to 10 million. I'm not saying that we need to sign Kyle Rouse, okay? I'm not
Mm.
saying that. Just because I'm an Australian doesn't mean I'm saying that. But what I'm getting at is here value for money and what we need with how many players that we have at that position already. I don't see this point of spending 8 to 10 million on someone who's only going to be a stopgap player.
No, I mean that you've cited an example of a player that with him being Australian, but you could apply that same argument to the J League. You could apply it to most of the European leagues outside of the top five. You know, someone who knew, for example, the Czech league or the maybe even the Russian league or something like that. You could go there and get a player of that quality for probably two, three, maybe 4 million quid as well. So like, if you have the scouting network, then absolutely you don't need to spend that kind of money. I'm really pleased that we've not gone back to that well, because that was my big worry with Brendan Rodgers coming back, is that we would go back to signing English Premier League cast-offs. And Phillips notwithstanding, we haven't really done that. So that's been very encouraging.
Michael Nicholson and Mark Lawwell's director of football.
Yeah.
There you go. But we'll get back to our game rather than talking
Yeah.
about this. We could keep going, but realistically, last thing on the centre backs, I'm just going to bring up this comment from Martin here. Phillips, a £10 million plus player. So it's a no go. We have five good centre backs: Welsh, Carter Scales, Lagerbelka, and Naroski. Needs a loan with recall. Same with Kobe. Like honestly, I reckon Kobayashi have said it. He needs to go out somewhere on loan. I'd send him to Hibs or Aberdeen, something like that. I know
Hmm.
there's options there for him, but yeah, I don't want to see him go back to the J League on loan. I think the rest of those guys could tide us over the rest of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 Kobayashi needs games. He's got to. He needs some games in Europe to acclimatise. Rogers made the same point about Telio the other day, saying that because he got injured as soon as he arrived, he's taken longer to acclimatise to the style of play in Scotland. And I think Kobayashi, not so much because of injury, but I just think he also had a bit of a stop-start pre-season, if you remember. And I think he's taken a wee bit longer to adjust than everybody else. And jury's still out as to whether he'll make the grade or not. Tellio, I'm sure he'll be fine once he gets up to speed. But the fact that Rogers made that point in his press conference the other day, I thought was very telling.
We had a comment on that from Michael Ross here saying Roger saying Tilio is struggling with the intensity of training since arriving at Celtic. Is that him saying he's not good enough?
Nah, I don't
No,
think so.
he's definitely good enough. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Take the Celtic and the green tinted specs off for a second here, okay?
Hmm.
If you've got teams in Scotland like Hearts with Cammy Devlin, Kai Rouse, Callum Nieuwenhof, those guys, right? All starting. You've got over at St Mirren, you've got what's his name? Ryan Strain and the midfielder that just kicks the crap out of everyone. I'm trying to remember his name again. Bacchus.
Aye.
You got him. Then you look at Hibs and they've got Miller there. Okay. You got all these Australian players who have come over from the A League and they were lesser regarded players within the setup. And not all of them are Australian internationals. The only one of those guys, when they signed over into Scotland as an Australian international, was Kyle Rouse. That's it. The rest of
Hmm.
them weren't even guaranteed starters at their teams here in Australia. Now they're all starting in Scotland, and they're some of the better players in their teams. Yet people think Tilio, who's won 4 straight comps, or sorry, 3 straight comps, and has played for Australia, has won the A-League Youth Player of the Year a couple of, like 2 seasons in a row, or at least been nominated for it, and is one hell of a player. People saying that, "Oh, is he gonna cut it in Scotland?" Wind your necks in, anyone like that. Like, the kid's been injured, like, he done a couple of really bad injuries end of last season. It's gonna take time for him to get back, get fit, settle into a new team, new coach, new club, new things, and he's gonna get his fitness back up. And by the time he gets his fitness up, unfortunately, there's gonna be players in front of him absolutely flying, like we're seeing with Palmer at the moment, like
Mhm.
we're seeing with Maeda. He's not gonna knock either of them out. So he's gonna be a long-term prospect for us. Second half of this season, once he's fit, we'll start to see something. And then next season, because of the fitness injuries issues, he's gonna hit the ground and absolutely explode in the same way Paddy Roberts did for us when he came in. Didn't do much his first 6 months. Second year of his 18-month loan, he went absolutely ballistic. That's where we're gonna see Tilio. That's the way I see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if we're having this same conversation 9 months from now, then you can start to get worried. But the boy's just in the door, as far as I'm concerned. People are asking questions about Kobayashi now because he's been at Celtic for 10 months and still hasn't really done anything. But Tilio is nowhere near that yet. Like I said, wait to the end of the season, see where we are then. Even I would say after pre-season next year, see where we are. Like you say, he's a long-term prospect, and he's clearly a player. And I'm not overly concerned. I think the manager was simply explaining why he's not part of the plans at the moment. He wasn't slagging the boy or saying he wasn't good enough. I think he was simply just saying, look, at the moment he's not there yet. And I think that's all there is to it, really.
Yep, 100%. It's gonna take time, but there's a player there, and yeah, just watch his space. That's the hill I'm
Yeah.
gonna die on, the way you were with Maeda, where he
Yep.
struggled in the first season. I'll put the marker down and say that. Like,
Mhm.
if he doesn't come good by the end of next season, if he's not playing regularly or at least in the squad, I'll come onto a podcast wearing a tiara. There you go. I've said it.
Oh dear. Aye, all right then. I'll go in on that as well. Okay, if he doesn't make the grade, I'll once again wear that infamous Sylvester Stallone top that almost got me kicked off Axon.
Fair enough. There we go. All right. So the game against Hearts. Let's get back to that.
Mm.
Goals scored. 4 minutes in. Matt O'Reilly's goal.
Oh, thing of beauty.
Doesn't matter what words we say here, we're going to be waxing lyrical. We're going to be just going on about it. It's a combination of the pass from Palmer, the run from O'Reilly, and then the finish. He had a lot to do. And
Mm.
just there was a reverse angle of it as you're watching him, and he's watching him watch the ball come in and then placing it. It was just a thing of beauty. It was an
Yeah,
absolute amazing goal.
I said to my dad as we were watching the game, I said, that's the sort of goal that should be a goal of the season contender. But because it wasn't like a 35-yard screamer, it's not going to be. And it's a shame because it's technically you will see very few better goals than that this season in Scotland.
Yep. Have to agree. Like, yeah, it was just it's a doozy of a goal. Like, I honestly don't know what to say, Liam. You said that, and I go, I don't know how to respond. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
that goal was amazing, but it wasn't just the goal. I know it was 4 minutes in, but then off the back of that, usually a team gets an early goal, and what happens? They relax. They let the
Mm.
other team get the ball, play their way into the game. Not today, Junior. That was the way
No,
I looked at it.
no.
Far out. We just went at him and pressed when we needed to and held back and did the old pass, and just opened them up. It was unbelievable. And then
Uh,
realistically, by about the 12th, 13th minute mark, we could have been 2 or 3 up. Like, they said in the warm-up that, Maeda was out on the right wing working on his crosses into the box with Harry Kewell,
Mm.
and you could notice that. The
Yeah.
crosses that were coming in from him were looking a lot more lively than they have in a long time. Usually, he just gets to the byline and just cuts something in quick, and it's just a quick little stub he's getting so the ball doesn't go out of the ground. But he was putting his crosses in earlier, and it was looking a hell of a lot like there was more purpose behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with that.
Well, it goes back to what I talked about Maeda the last time we were on. I said like he can switch positions as required, but he does need that wee period of adjustment. And I think now he's starting to emerge from that, and we're seeing that yes, he can play on the right and he can be effective.
Yep, his, the old Neil Lennon tactic, switch the wingers, is actually working.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but then even with the crosses like I'm talking about was good there, but when you have a look at even the second goal, like, you see when the VAR looked at it, how far onside Maeda was, and then he just, like,
yeah.
bungles it over the line, and the look on his face was just like, "What's going on here?" Like, he actually looked agitated that he scored it so ugly.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you don't get style points, Daisy.
No. I mean, the whole team were kind of like that at the start. I mean, Brendan Rodgers is too much of a professional to ever admit this, but it was as if Hearts had annoyed them. The way they were playing, it was as if Hearts had done something to offend Celtic, and Celtic like, let's just put this mob back in their box.
I think the easiest way was just the nicest way I can sum it up was, when you're at a pub and there's just like that loud group of wankers in the corner, just absolutely just chirp, chirp, chirping away. And if you walk past, if someone gets bumped, then they're just like trying to start trouble.
Yeah,
That's what Hearts looked like in the first 20, 30 minutes. Anytime there was a chance to like bump someone or get a bit of niggle or just try and rough us up, they tried to do it. And
yeah.
our guys were just like, "No, enough of this. Get the fly swatter out. Just give 'em a whack and get on with it." Yeah, it was just brilliant. Good to see.
Uh, yeah,
Then
especially
we
against that mob.
Oh, yeah. One thing I did notice, though, I always knew that, I almost said Tannadice for some reason,
Mm,
Tynecastle. I've always thought that's very small, like, there's not much runoff from the side, like, the end of the goals to the fence,
mm,
and there was one point where we're trying to take a corner, and I think it was O'Reilly, he took 2 steps back, and his heel was on the fence, and he actually had Turnbull pushing the fence back for him as he was warming up so he could get that full stride in to get his shot in, like, to put the corner in.
yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean yeah, all right. I get it that it's tight and close to the pitch, and they want to create that kind of a bear pit atmosphere.
It's the crowd that
But
do that, though.
yeah, like you say, when it gets to the point where a player can't even take a corner properly, that's where you think, wait a minute, this is too much.
Yeah. Like, I know they say, "Oh, it's a small pitch there and everything," and all it takes is reduce the length of the pitch an extra foot at each end. It's not gonna make a difference for, onsides, offsides, any of that sort of stuff, and it's gonna help player safety, get them away from those mutants in the crowd, so you can't go wrong with doing something like that, but I just thought that was odd, but
I'm amazed that's not part of the official regulations. Like a pitch has to be a minimum length, a minimum width, a minimum dimension. Um, why is there no like SFA or SPFL statute about like the minimum distance from the crowd that the corner flags have to be, for example, or the
we have
touch line has to be.
we have that over here, like,
Yeah, most
and the
professional leagues do. That's the thing.
we've got it over here, and what's strange about it is the reason we have it in Australia is because there's 2 stadiums. You had Perth Glory Stadium, where there's very little runoff. It's kind of like there wasn't much runoff, and they had used to call it the tunnel at their stadium. Well, it was you could fit one person. I'd have to walk through sideways if I was to go into the locker rooms. That's how ridiculous small it was, but it was funny to see that. But, like, they didn't have much runoff at certain spots at that stadium, but then you had the opposite of Wellington Phoenix playing on this big round oval in New Zealand, so they had
Mm,
heaps of it. So then one season they had like this massive, super wide field, and it was a joke. So then they're like, okay, you've got to have certain proportions and stuff like that, and they fixed it all. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just weird though.
I mean, Hampden goes the other way. The atmosphere at Hampden is almost always crap because you're just
It's
too
so far
far away
away.
from the pitch. It
Yep.
really and this because it's such an open arena, the sound travels upwards instead of traveling forwards, and it's just the acoustic. I mean, I've been to concerts there as well, and the acoustics are absolutely rotten as well.
So with Hamden, Liam, question.
Mm.
I know it's back a bit. Does it go out like it's a slow incline up, or is it actually like a sharper up like that?
Oh no, it's quite a smooth incline. I mean, don't get me wrong. I once launched a guy down the stairs for being a dick, and he fell quite a bit. But but no, that generally it's not particularly steep. I mean, like I say, if you push someone down, they're going to fall down several flights. But it's not overly. I mean, Celtic Park's a lot steeper. Put it that way. Um, and yeah, it's just Hampden is it's just a mess of a stadium. It really is. It's freezing cold as well because you've always got this big sort of column behind where the crowd sits, and then there's like a sort of a 20-yard gap to get to like the pie stalls, and it's just this constant wind tunnel of just this circulate. Even on a day when it's not that windy, it's always freezing because you've got this constant circulation of outside air. It's not a good stadium at all.
Gonna bring up some comments here about this. So the SPL rule is the distance between the touchline and the crowd must be the minimum of one blaze length.
I thought it was one rolled up trouser leg length, but there you go. Aye.
Tony, because in Melbourne is closer to the pitch than Celtic end at the ham dump. Dominic, Jared, got to be a
Oh,
top if Tilly doesn't come through. Two issues with that. One, I would never spend my money on that rubbish. I'd rather give it to charity. And two, I'd rather punch myself in the dick 20 times in a row than wear a Sevco top. So it's not going to happen.
plus, I'm pretty sure Australia has laws about importing toxic materials,
Toxic
don't
waste spills.
they?
Yeah. Yeah. So just getting back to the second half, like quickly talk about that. I thought it was more of the
Mm,
same. I think that was their most complete 90-minute performance. Some of the players coming on for subs. It was good to see Bernardo out there again. Awada coming on, actually playing in the middle of the park was good. The more I'm seeing him playing there, I'm happy with that.
mm.
Goal from Kyogo. I love it. First half, 4 minutes in goal. Second half, 6 minutes in goal. That just like deflated them to the point where you just see their stadium just getting emptier and emptier and emptier. And that will tie into our next topic. But
Mm.
then they got a little bit of hope with their goal, which was a bad turnover from us. And look, Maeda did a lot of positive in the game, so coughed one up. It is what it is. You get on with it. Didn't cost us any points at the end of the day. So,
Give Shankland his due. It was a decent finish as well.
oh,
Decent turn and shot.
there's a fair bit of
Yeah.
curl on it. Got to give
Yep.
credit where it's due there. And then you've got
Aye.
and then the goal at the end. What I found funny with the Awada one was the ball comes over, O gets it, takes a shot, and Awada's got waving for it. He takes a second shot. He's waving for it. The ball finally comes out, goes elsewhere, comes back to him. One touch, bang, in off the bottom of the underside of the crossbar and in. And he's like, yeah. And I'm just like, that's what should have happened on the first one.
Yeah. It's let me say to Big O, right, you've had your turn. Give me a shot now. Come on.
RL 77. Awada. Right. Oh, that's how you do it.
Yep, exactly.
Michael Ross has got a comment for you, Liam. Should we buy Shankland?
No, we shouldn't.
I don't think we need. Let's look at it this way. If Shankland came in, is he going to start over Kyogo as a striker? No.
No.
Is he an improvement as a backup striker on Maeda playing through the middle? No.
No.
So we should not buy him. And Pegleg has said it here. No, we should not buy Shankland a shite bag. There you go.
The thing about Shankland is he's not a player that's ever going to step up and win you a game. I don't think. I think you need a big character to be at Celtic. I think if we signed him, it'd be another Nadir Chifty. It looks good playing for another Scottish team, but pish when he comes to us.
The The funny
Yeah,
thing as
not
well,
for
though,
me.
is, as you said, Liam, is he gonna step up and win you a game? He stepped up against us last year and scored a hat trick in a 4-3
Mm,
loss for them. So,
yeah.
it didn't really do much. So,
No,
no.
no.
Um, like, as Andrew's saying here, I was still so young as well. Like, I see I was the 3rd string striker in the way Edouard was in Rodgers' first season last time around.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we had Dembele, we had Griffiths, and then we had the understudy. Oh, is that player this year? We're going to see bits and pieces from him, and then one game he's just going to absolutely erupt, and then we'll be like, "Oh, there's that player we've all heard about." I don't know when it will happen. I
Well,
hope
if
it
it's
happens.
another 3-2 win at Ibrox with 10 men, I'll take that. Just like Big Eddie's debut. Well, not his debut, but he's kind of when he really hit his stride was that winning goal against the Huns. So
Yeah,
one of those from O would certainly go a long way.
yeah, that would go a long way to getting people on side for him. So
Mm.
we normally have our player focus where we talk about players. I think we've basically covered everyone that we want to talk about. I just want to say Joe Hart. I thought he did really well with the ball at his feet yesterday in the game, and had a couple of
Yeah.
decent saves as well. So I'll give credit where that's due. Greg
Another
Taylor
good
did
save
well.
at 1-0. Another very good
Yeah,
save at 1-0, which is very important and often gets overlooked. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, you were saying.
No, good. Greg Taylor, left back. I thought he was very understated, but played his role to perfection. Especially with Palmer, when you get him on the left and he's squaring up to guys. It's when does Taylor stay narrow? When does Taylor overlap? I think he's starting to get that bit of understanding with him on where to be in what position. So it was good to see that. So my question is, Liam, do you see with the guys we've got in the squad and with Scales playing as well as he is, and he can also play at left back, do you see any
Mm.
way for Bernabei to even get into our squad, let alone into the first team?
Honestly, no. No. If you ask me right now, the way things are, pick pick out 3 players that are at Celtic now that are not going to be at Celtic in the new year. I would say Bernabe, Phillips, and Kobayashi. Unfortunately, I think
James
those are the.
McCarthy, come on.
Well, I mean that kind of goes without saying, but I think he must have, I don't know, photos of Brendan in a compromising position or something. I really don't know, but why he's still there. But
Yeah,
aye, no, there's you look at players sometimes and you think there's just it's no a bad player, but he's not our player. And I just think Bernabe is one of them that he'll probably go somewhere else and be really good, but just doesn't fit the bill for what we need.
yeah. I think Turnbull's another one because he's out of contract at the end of the season as well. That's going to be a factor. Gon yourself is saying Hatate was losing the ball now and then, which surprised me, but he chased back well. The thing about Hatate, I noticed there's a slight tweak to how we normally play. So we normally
Mm,
have McGregor playing in the 6, and we have Hatate in an 8, and we've had O'Reilly in the 10 most of the season. With the
mm,
late runs that O'Reilly's been making into the box, I'm going to call them Paul Scholes esque sort of runs,
mm,
just ghosting in at the last minute for the cut back and scoring them. One touch sort of finish and just putting some howitzers into the top corner. I think we saw more of a slight tweak there where we saw Hatate more in the 10. So he didn't have as much time on the ball as he normally does because, the guys are pressing him and he's right around the box. So where he was losing the ball, at least he was losing in the spot where he could press back straight away and get his
mm.
work rate going. And then that freed up O'Reilly to get it that little bit deeper, time his runs a little bit more, and he was getting onto the end of him with some good positioning and stuff. And even if he wasn't getting the shot, he was getting it to then reverse the ball and move it on. So
Yeah.
I think that was a slight tweak we saw in that game tactically, which I actually like the look of. So I'm not going to be mad at Hatate for losing the ball in the number 10 role the way he did, because I'd rather him lose it there than lose it in the 8 like he has been at times this season.
Yeah, I noticed that when he played for Japan last week as well. I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but he definitely seems more assertive and more kind of like eager to get up and support the attack and really kind of link up the play. And he made Kyogo's goal against Tunisia last week with a beautiful through pass. was almost playing like a winger at one point, and you saw a bit of that again yesterday as well, like linking up with the attack and putting some good balls into the box. And yeah, I really like he's obviously developed a better understanding of what Rodgers wants him to do now, and I think that was all that was missing before. And it's very telling that if you look back on, just to go back to David Turnbull, you were talking about before Hatate signed his contract, Rodgers was like, yes, he's a quality player. We want to get his future sorted out. When Turnbull had a couple of good games at the start of the season, it was like, well, if he keeps this up, maybe. To me, that was like a manager being diplomatic because he had to play a player at that time, as opposed to talking up a player because he absolutely sees him as a future part of the squad. Very different reactions to essentially the same question about two different players.
Another thing about Hatate that I just realized as well was the role he was playing. And Andrew's just said it here. Like Hatate was everywhere. O'Reilly was definitely starting deeper. What I saw Hatate's game, I'm starting to see those wrinkles in it in terms of he's looking more like a combination of Rogic when he's in the middle of the 10, but then by drifting slightly wider as a link-up player, the way that Stuart Armstrong used to under Rodgers the first time at the club.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
he's starting to get that into his game.
I mean, the comparison that's been made in the Japanese press, and that, maybe a bit early to be saying this, but the comparison being made is Shinji Kagawa when he was at Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, fair.
It wasn't quite as effective when he went to Man United, but I think that was more down to Man United's system not really suiting him. But at Dortmund, he was playing very similar to the way Hatate is now. And once Hatate starts adding like the sort of 8 to 10 goals a season, then he'll be on that level, I think.
Yep, have to agree with you. Now, I'm going to bring up a couple of comments from early on in the show. So, not that one. I got a question for you here, Liam. You might know it.
Mm.
Has there ever been 3 Japanese players scoring in the same game outside of Japan? Of course, there should have been.
It's funny. My dad asked the same question last night, and I couldn't think of any. Because I don't know if there's ever actually been a team with as many, a team outside of the J League rather, with as many Japanese in the starting lineup. No, I don't. I think that might be a first. It's definitely a first in the UK, that's for sure. If any other league has done it, it would have been a German team because there's quite a few German teams with multiple Japanese players. But yeah, I think 3 different Japanese scoring in the same game, that's a first.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So, Dominic had a comment early on. Matt's goal was football porn. Have to agree with you.
Yep.
I think if you go onto what's it called, the hub, I'm not going to say the full one because
Yes.
we'll get demonetized on YouTube. But if you go on the hub and type in jam tarts, you might see that there. Who knows what else you might see? You might see a bunch of red-headed actresses. I don't know. Good
That
luck
goal would
finding out.
to use a turn of phrase our friend Sean uses, that goal would have you ripping the heat off it. Yes.
Jeez. All right.
Uh,
Next topic. Everyone, light up the comment section. Away allocations in SPFL games. I'm going to ask you straight up because Peglegs commented this. Why did they reduce Celtic to a miserly 500 tickets and their stadium ended up half full? Pure stupidity. And then
well,
you've got Michael Ross, loads of empty seats in the away end. Now,
mm,
I'm going to go with my little thing and then you jump in off the
yep,
back here, Liam, because
sure.
my question for everyone, put it in the comments. How shit was the atmosphere at Tynecastle with only 576 Celtic fans in the away end, while the bay next to them was practically empty? My thoughts on this is we're constantly having teams in Scotland crying poor about, oh, we have no budget to compete with the teams from Glasgow. Yet when they have the chance to open their stadiums up and, sell more tickets, they say no. Brendan Rodgers has said that he's recommended that the SPFL gets involved and implements minimum standards for away allocations at all games across Scotland. What do you guys think? In the comments, and yourself, Liam, what do you think? How shit was the atmosphere? And do we need to have an actual implement a minimum standard like they have in Europe where it has to be 5% of the stadium or 3% of the stadium or whatever? What do you think?
Right. Well, first of all, to answer your question about why did teams like Hearts do that? It's short-termism, spite, and stupidity. That's the only way to describe it. The unfortunate reality, if you're not a Celtic or a Rangers supporter in Scotland, is that Celtic and Rangers are the hand that feeds you, and you shouldn't bite it. That's unfortunately that is the financial reality. When Hearts are getting crowds of 25,000, then they can tell Celtic they're not getting any tickets. But yesterday, that stadium was barely half full. So I'm sorry, but if you cannot fill the demand, then really you have a moral obligation to open it up for people that are willing to fill that demand. Celtic could have sold out Tynecastle yesterday easily, and Hearts chose not to take that money. And like you say, they'll have the begging bowl out at the end of the season saying to their fans, we need you, we need you to step up, we need you to contribute so we can compete. And it's like, well, guys, you're cutting off your own, financial bollocks here. So don't come crying to your fans when you can't, you can't get your act together. Yeah, there should be a minimum. In the J League it's 10%. But bear in mind, J League stadiums are a fair bit bigger than the ones in Scotland most of the time. I think, I would say 5% or 1,500, whichever is higher, should be the minimum for travelling
Yeah.
support. I think that's about fair.
My view, Liam, is whatever the allocations are, if they were to play in Europe, that's what it should be in Scotland as a minimum. Because
Yeah.
the way I look at it is, if these teams want to play well in their league and qualify for the Conference League or the Europa League, that's
Mhm.
what the setup at their stadium is going to need to be anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it. That's the absolute minimum. Now,
Mhm.
we'll bring up a couple of things here. So RL77 is going to be practically impossible for the SPFL to administrate or advertise itself any worse than it does. Gone yourself is more Celtic supporters at the game than Hearts fans the last 10 minutes. Martin is, I know Hearts fans who love the fact it's an issue, but the more clubs do it means the SPL will have to get involved when Sky pulls the plug.
Yeah.
Then you got your Michael McDonald, who would make that decision? Definitely not the SFA or the league. Yeah, unfortunately, you'd need to get an 11-1 vote to pass it. So every team in the top flight would have to, because we know the Huns won't. And if the Diet Huns are doing it, Livingston's doing it, and a few other clubs are all doing it, it's not going to happen. As Pegleg saying, as soon as the Ibrox mob produced the allocation for the derby, the SFA should have stepped in.
Yeah.
Now the rest of them are at it because they got away with it. Kenny's
The
saying,
precedent was set. Yeah.
Kenny's saying two-stage approach, 1 minimum percent and 2 time limit to sell. Rest they go the opposite side. So like the games at Hampden. I like that one, Kenny.
Yep, that's a good shout. That's an
Yeah.
excellent shout.
When I said other clubs have been crying and crying poor, I'm referring to Livingston above all else.
Mm.
Like, they don't want to, give you more seats because they have to move 4 fans. Like, move them like 3 bays over. So clubs like that, clubs like St Johnstone need to do it. Dundee clubs do a decent job. Aberdeen have changed it up this year. So there's a whole bunch of things that if clubs want to get more money to either invest in their playing squad to make a run in Europe or to invest and improve their facilities, they need to bring money in. So sell your tickets. You're better off. The old saying is bums on seats are better than nothing. So you're better off getting 20 quid or the old 20's plenty or whatever saying. You're better off getting that in three full stands than having empty seats and having a moral victory, because if you're a club like Hearts who is fan owned, who's going to have to pay the difference at the end of the season?
Yeah, and this is the downside to fan-owned clubs, is that quite often with fan-owned clubs, decisions are made based on emotion rather than based on reality. And it's because Hearts have a significant part of their fan base utterly detests Celtic. So they just don't want to give us anything, even if it is hurting their own club in doing so.
And my bad, by the way, where I said Livingston don't, I was referring to the wrong club. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was someone who didn't want to move some fans 3 bays
I
over. Maybe,
I
maybe
think it was Kilmarnock. I think it might have been
it's either
Kilmarnock.
Killy or Ross County. It's one of those two, I think.
It'd be Kelly because Ross County are good guys. They're all right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So
yeah.
there you go. Livingston give us the 3 stands because they need money. Yeah, that's right.
Aye.
I'm confused. I'll put my hand up. Yep. Said the wrong team.
No, I mean in the case of Livingston, to give them their due, they actually played it exactly the right way. They gave their fans, I think, about 2 or 3 months and said, look, if you can fill the seats, we won't give them away supporters. Then after that, whatever that trial period was, they said, well, look, we're giving Celtic and Rangers 2 stands because we gave you your chance and you didn't step up, and we need the money. You know, the
Yep.
realism kicked in there, and it needs to kick in with the other clubs too.
Liam's mates. Liam, the communist of the podcast, is actually having a capitalist conversation with me, and I like it. Michael Ross has said who it was. Liam, it was St. Mirren, who didn't want to move those people
All right,
3
well, there you go.
rows over. There we go.
Well,
So,
Kilmarnock are a shower of shite as well, just for the record.
so Liam, something you brought up in our group chat was about Brendan Rodgers, Leo Labata, and their trip up to Loch Lomond. So I'll throw that to you to just have a little quick chat about it. All I'm going to say is we're keeping the politics of this story out of the show because what's going on is not ideal, but I don't want to dive into that. So if we can
Yeah.
keep the comments section nice here on this as well, let's just talk about what's happened.
Yeah. I'll, as I often say to my wife, I'll keep this short. I have 2 main points I want to make about this. First of all, it was an absolutely top class and beautiful piece of man management and just being a good human being from Brendan Rodgers to take Leo Bad out for dinner, make sure he was all right mentally, make sure that he understood that whatever your view is on this political situation, which we're not going to discuss, whatever your view is on it, Leo Abada does not represent his government or his military. And I think, the vast majority of Celtic fans are smart enough to recognise that. And he will get a fantastic reception next time he plays. That's without question. So well done, Brendan Rodgers. Now, the second point I wanted to add to this, which is not political but may seem slightly controversial. I noticed that throughout this whole saga, ever since things kicked off in Israel and Palestine, there's been a concerted effort by the Scottish press to insinuate that because some of the Celtic support are pro-Palestine, and let's just make the distinction here that they have not, to my knowledge, produced any banners that are explicitly anti-Israel. They're all pro-Palestine, and the Scottish press have engineered this thing where Leo Abada wants to leave Celtic because of their anti-Israeli agenda of some of their supporters. I have not seen any anti-Israel agenda. And also, I have not heard a word from Leo Abada himself about this. Now, how does he feel about what's going on in his country right now? He's probably terrified because my Israeli mate's fucking terrified for his family. Perfectly natural response to what's going on over there, regardless of how you feel about the reasons behind the conflict. But for the Scottish press to use a war going on in a player's country to weaponize that to try and turn him against the supporters, that is a new low, even for the Scottish press, in my opinion.
Yep, have to agree, Liam. And the only thing I want to say is, hasn't been any anti-Israeli comments. It's all been pro-Palestine. The biggest idiots, other than the media, are those guys who were in the There was, like when the Green Brigade on yesterday's game had all the Palestinian flags flying, there were some Hearts guys with an Israeli flag on their phone, holding it up and flipping the bird to the Palestinian stuff. That bloke is a dickhead. That's the way I look at it. That guy's an instigator. That's the sort of person we're referring to.
Yeah.
That's why they're not a Celtic fan. At the end of the day, if you're wearing the green and white hoops and you give your all for the club, I'll support you. And I don't blame Abada for what's going on over there. His dad flew out the day it all kicked off after a visit, so of course he's going to be worried and stuff. Like, oh, if that was my dad going into a war zone, I'd be worried. I'm telling you that as well. So I don't blame him. So at the end of the day, he's a human. So we support our players and we get on with it. Like, I suppose that's all we can do. But yeah, I just want to take it back to the initial point. Great man management from Rogers. Credit where it's due.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. And that is the most important takeaway from all of this, is that, like you say, we've got a player who is deeply worried for his family and his friends right now, and he's got the manager 100% behind him, and that is something that, as a human being, you just love to see.
Yep, 100%. Another story that we saw during the weekend, Ryan Christie's been linked with a move back to Celtic. Liam, what's your thoughts on that?
Nah, just look, decent player, but that ship has sailed. He did very well when he came back from his loan at Aberdeen. Decided that he wanted to go and try his luck in England. It's not really worked out for him, and it's not. It's not really. Like I say, good player, but not a player that we need at the moment. And I think he'd be better off going either to a slightly lower level within England or possibly even moving to Europe, because I think he's good enough to have an effect at a certain level. But I don't think for a team like Celtic that aspire to be at least competing in the Champions League, Ryan Christie is not the answer. So good luck to him, but not at Celtic for me.
I think Christie would, if he was going to go to any European league, he probably would suit maybe playing in Italy or Germany.
Somewhere where he gets a bit more time on the ball. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so Italy would be that,
Yeah.
or because he's got like when he plays, we used to joke Tom Rogic had one lung when he played because he didn't give a lot of effort, and Christie would have 17 lungs. That was the old joke because he just would run and run and run. We've covered that leg work with Maeda, with Kyogo, with Atate, with a bunch of other guys there. So yeah, I don't see it as a move back. If we were going to get any of our former Rogers players coming back as a midfielder, I mentioned him early on. For me, I'd take Armstrong in a heartbeat, but that's pretty much the only former one of our guys I'd take back in the middle of the park. And
Yeah.
even that's doubtful to me.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, Armstrong's one you can make a case for, but I don't. Uh, not not one I would really go for, to be honest. I'm happy with our midfield as it is right now. It's the strongest it's been in quite a while, and I don't think you need to bring in again. Christie is now a player who has played in the English Premier League and is going to expect an English Premier League salary, which we do not pay, and which
Yep.
we should not pay unless we're getting a player of significantly higher quality than him.
I'd rather see home get a run of games. I'd rather see Awada play more.
Yep,
There you go.
absolutely.
Okay, next thing, we'll keep this short and sweet. I just wanted to drop this into the pod for those who haven't done it, but the official Celtic podcast is out, and I was really been enjoying a few of the episodes there where they're talking to, like, I think it was Paul Lambert about when Martin O'Neill came in. That was a good one. But there was one episode I listened to on the weekend that I really enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would, which was the episode on John Kennedy.
Mm.
Like, for me, it was good. Like, every time you'd see Kennedy, he's like robotic with the mic and he doesn't look like he's smiling and he seems like a bit of a, you know, severely introverted. And you can understand that with the injuries he's been through and the way people getting on saying he's the defensive coach and he's shy and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But hearing him on the podcast, drop his guard, have a bit of a laugh and talk about his career, the pathway he took through to the first team, then when he got injured and his way back from his injuries and all that sort of stuff. I think the thing I took out of that episode was it made him a lot more relatable and likable. And just if you haven't listened to it, if you're someone who's given Kennedy been on his back and given him you know, been a bit hard on him in the past, like I have been, go have a listen to that episode. It's about an hour long, maybe, but go and check it out. I don't know. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, I would second that. I think it was Shane brought it up in our chat the other day, and I actually sat down and watched it during my lunch at school today. And yeah, it was a very because the funny thing is, from a personal point of view, I remember being at the Scotland game where he got that horrible injury. So to see him, actually talk about that and how he mentally and emotionally dealt with it was quite impactful as well, I thought. And like you say, he comes across very well, extremely likable guy, extremely knowledgeable guy. And yeah, I am a lot happier with him at Celtic having seen that interview.
Yep. And we've got some comments here. So, yeah, not that one. Michael Kennedy would have been a Celtic great, 100%.
Yeah.
Tony was like, John Kennedy gave his testimonial money to charity. There you go. So it shows the sort of bloke he is. And then
Class
Martin has,
act, especially when he wouldn't have made the amount of money that most players make by the time they get a testimonial.
yep. And then Martin is, I hope Kennedy gets the job after Rogers. Don't think he gets the credit. He's won more than any Celtic player and coach, I think. I don't think he will get it after Rogers because unless Peter Lawwell gets involved. But yeah, I wouldn't be too upset if he did. But I'd hope we'd at least look to keep progressing no matter what we do.
I want him to remain part of the setup, put it that way.
Yeah.
In whenever Brendan does eventually go.
Eventually, he's going to have to go be his own man, though. Is he going to step up and become? He's not going to want to be like Mourinho's assistant Faria, who did nothing for years and then finally stepped out and just choked. He's not going to want to be like, who was that guy Alessio who replaced Steve Clark at Killy?
Yeah.
And he's come in and he lasted like 8 or 9 weeks. He'd never managed before. And he's come in. He's going to get to a point where either he steps up and Kennedy becomes a manager and goes and does it on his own, or he's just a forever coach.
I mean, ultimately, it depends on what he wants to do. If he's happy where he is and his family are happy where they are, and he is a Celtic supporter, so if that's where he wants to be, then you can argue that to a certain mindset, if being at Celtic is your dream, then any move away from there is a step down.
Yep.
Emotionally speaking, so he might well end up just being at Celtic for the rest of his managerial career. I don't know, but it's definitely possible. I'd like to see him get involved with Scotland at some point because I think he could definitely do a job there.
That's an interesting shout as well. All right, Liam, we're going to go a quick preview of Champions League game Wednesday night. Celtic versus Athletico Madrid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your starting lineup, Liam? What are you thinking?
Right. Well, first of all, I'm going to reach for the lubricant, and then no. Right. Sorry. Yeah. I would just go with the same team we had at the weekend. To be honest, I think that's our strongest 11 at the moment. Go out there and just give it our best shot and see what happens. And if Atletico put the boot in, as I think they might, you then have the option of bringing on the likes of Iwata to strengthen things up a bit in the midfield. Yeah, look, we're probably on to hiding to nothing, so why not just go out there with our most attacking, most open team and just go for it? I mean, if we don't win this game, we're probably effectively out of the group anyway. So what difference does it make? Just go out there and play, put on a show, and see what happens. That's all we can do.
Yep, I agree with that. Just get out there, have a crack. Same starting lineup again. Get out there, do your best, and see what happens. Like, to me, if we get a draw, that's as good as a win. Like,
Yeah.
I think Atletico is going to be absolutely smacking everyone around the whole group. So, yeah, they'll finish top of the group. and then the battle is for second and third. So as long as we don't get pumped, but as, could be a lot worse pumpings. It could involve what's her name, Lana. What's her name? The bird, the Ibrox porn star chick.
Lana something.
Or
Aye, aye.
whatever her name is, you could get pumped by her. So I'd rather Athletico thumpers, to be honest with you. There you go.
Ooh, aye.
Now
Seen, seen more
I'm gonna
seen
be
more
silly
pricks
here.
on a second-hand dartboard. That one.
I'm gonna be silly here though. If
Mm.
anyone feels the urge to slide tackle over the sideline and put the studs in a Diego Simone's shin, and just do that for fun, I will. I will stand up and I will slow clap like this to my TV. It will be amazing. Like, I would love to see someone just clatter him. And if it's Brendan Rodgers, even better. Or Harry Kewell come charging across the sideline and just chin him. Yeah, I think he's a
Aye.
filthy pig, that guy. But yeah, starting lineups will be the same as the weekend. Where will the game be won, Liam? What do you reckon?
Um, it's going to be all about trying to get an early goal and basically putting the frighteners on them because, like you said, Atletico are the heavy favourites. They are not expected to face much of a challenge in this group from anybody really. So if we stun them with a quick early goal, that's when you see the character of a team. And no one has really asked a question of their character yet. And that's all we can do. I think we go out there, hit an early goal, ask questions of them, and you never know. They might just shit the bed.
Yeah, I'll look at it and go, like, it's going to sound pretty weird, but I kind of agree with you there, Liam. Get the early goal, but then they're not a good they're a bunch of downhill skiers, Athletico. If they get the first goal and get up and about, then they'll just
Mm,
keep cruising. If we get an
yeah.
early goal and then do what we do well, which is play keepings off and make them run and run and run and chase us while we're just knocking the ball around, draining the energy out of their legs, especially coming from a hot place where they're used to playing up to the cold of Glasgow, and then
Mm.
make them, do all that. There's a fair chance they're gonna struggle later on in the game. So if we can break them down that way, then there's a chance. But as I said, I reckon it'll be a draw. So yeah, it's gonna be one in the midfield though. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those nights as well where it's a cliche to say it, but the crowd are going to play a massive part because that's another element of putting the frighteners on a team when they come to Celtic Park. You've got to have that intimidation factor, and we need to rediscover that.
Got another cliche then for you, Liam. The team who takes
Hmm.
their chances wins.
Aye, aye, aye. Yep. I think it was
So
Gary Lineker who famously once said, if they hadn't scored more goals than us, they wouldn't have won.
exactly. There you go. So Gon yourself is saying, I think Athletic are overrated. I'm thinking we win 3-1 home game last chance.
Oh, I
Liam,
hope
what's
you're
your
right,
score
mate. I
prediction?
really hope you're right.
Everyone,
I'm
chuck
gonna,
your score
yeah.
predictions in there. Pegleg saying a
Mm.
draw at home isn't impossible. So everyone, chuck your score predictions in. What do you reckon, Liam?
Um, right. I'm gonna say two each, but the optimist in me thinks 3-2 Celtic, last minute winner. Goes in off the goalkeeper's arse. Yeah, there you go.
Days, no, it'll be Daisy Maeda scoring off like his hip or something and not realizing it. Because it'll be his like comeback game from last year where he's wide open against Real Madrid and he just butchered it, right? So now you're gonna get him in
Mm.
some awkward chance where he's like doesn't even see the ball. The goalkeeper saves it, punches it, and it ricochets off his hip and goes in. And it's gonna be Maeda scoring the goal like that, and it'll be like Maeda with the winner. That's how it'll work. No, I was gonna say two all
Yeah.
as well. Um, but
Mm.
it's one of those games though that if it was squeaky bum time 1-0 and not a single goal is scored, like a goal scored really early and then nothing the rest of the game, or there's nothing scored and then in the 86th minute someone scores, either of those isn't going to surprise me. But I just think both teams have a lot
Yeah.
of options up front that there's more chance that it's going to be like 4 goals scored and it'll be a draw, a 2-all draw.
Both teams are defensively volatile as well. I think Atletico's weakness is definitely in their defense. So, yeah.
Yep, fair enough. All right, so we'll go to our final thoughts now. Shane sent through a final thought, even though he's not on the pod tonight. So Shane's final thought is, I'm just getting the details up, bear with me. For those of you who live over here in Melbourne, on this Saturday, down at Seaworks in Williamstown, there is a Highland Celtic gathering. So basically the Melbourne Highland Games and Celtic Festival people are putting on a festival down there. Celebration of Highland and Celtic culture at Seaworks Williamstown with dancing, music, displays, food, and merchandise to enjoy it. Tickets were about $25, I think, a pop when I looked at it. So you can get them through their Facebook page and everything. You can look it up on there, or at trybooking.com. You can find them on there as well. So that was Shane's final thought to share. My final thought is pretty simple. Give those that you love, give them a hug. Like, it's a tough time of the year. We're coming up towards November, the run into Christmas, with the pressures and stuff like that, with finances and whatever's going on and cost of living. Some people, they're not gonna have the Christmas that they'd wish. They're not gonna be able to provide, and there's starting to be some doubts. I know a few people with that. So if you got a friend out there, you're not sure how they're coping, have a chat to them, give them a hug. So what's the least you can do? Just check in on your family and friends. Liam, what's your final thoughts?
Well, my lovely wife's sister, my sister-in-law Risa, is currently at home resting up with COVID, which she caught because she's a care worker and devotes her time to looking after elderly and sick people. So, Risa, get well soon.
Feel well. And yeah, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Next podcast will be on Thursday night. We'll have the Thursday sesh. So Thursday night our time. We will be reviewing the Athletico game, previewing the weekend, any other news or stories that pop up in the meantime, we'll be talking about on there. And I think it'll be me, Steve, and Willie, and a special guest. So watch this space. But we'll, yeah, looking forward to it. Get through the game. Hopefully, we pick up a point as a minimum. If we can do the Days Made last minute hip scoring winner, that'll be even better. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it. Hail, hail.
Hell, hell.